The anime begins with someone waking up at night by the shores of a lake, not understanding why they are there. Then a memory comes to their mind. The young person recalls a calm motorcycle ride, when suddenly they notice that a vending machine inside the van they were following is about to fall. In an attempt to avoid the accident, the young person ends up falling off the road along with the vending machine. We then shift back to the present. The young person believed they had died, but apparently they didn't. When they try to walk away, they realize they can't move and call for help. However, instead of hearing their voice, they hear the sound of a vending machine. The young person starts to remember and realizes that all the phrases they hear, they had heard before. They then see their reflection in a puddle of water, leading them to realize that they have transformed into a vending machine. The protagonist can't believe what's happening and finds it hard to accept that they've been reincarnated as a vending machine. They contemplate how unlikely it is for a protagonist, even one who had really enjoyed vending machines during their life. Upon looking at their reflection again, they start to accept and even like their new appearance, appreciating the reasonable prices, the elegance of their rectangular white form, and their functionality. However, they soon stop admiring themselves and become angry, realizing that reincarnating as a vending machine is the worst thing that could happen to a protagonist. Despite this, they then consider it as divine mercy to be able to be reincarnated as something they love the most in this world. They eventually resign themselves as there's nothing they can do. They are surprised that the situation doesn't feel ominous, and during the night, they begin to experiment with what they can say. Upon realizing that they can only produce a few phrases, they focus on trying to control themselves in order to understand their own body. Their efforts only result in producing a few letters and numbers. Phrases appear in their mind, referring to the products they can sell, with only 2 types of products available. Then a voice tells them that they can use points to change the products. It explains that points are converted money and can be used to restock or change the inventory, as well as add new functions. After investigating, the protagonist discovers new functions. They can cool or heat items, defrost products, and even add water to instant ramen. They are satisfied with their capabilities. Next, they investigate the available products. Concentrating, they realize that all the products they bought in their life are now available. They decide to test things out and include cold milk tea among the products, priced at only 100 yen, equivalent to 1 point. This brings happiness to the protagonist, who wants to explore more functions. During their investigation, they discover that their body doesn't run on electricity. Instead, it consumes points. 1 point equals 1 hour of operation, requiring 24 points a day. Calculating, they determine they need to earn 24 yen a day, and they currently have 900 points, enough to last a month. Thus, they decide not to spend points until they establish themselves. However, they realize their location makes it difficult for customers to come by. The next day, their point counter decreases, causing anxiety since no customers approach. Suddenly, a human-sized frog with armor and a weapon arrives. The protagonist considers acting surprised, but as a vending machine, they decide to act accordingly. They welcome the frog, and the encounter continues. Startled, the frog-like creature recoils backward upon seeing the protagonist, appearing frightened. It then turns towards the protagonist and begins attacking with its weapon, dealing 3 damage and reducing the protagonist's resistance by 3 points. The protagonist is unsure about what resistance is, prompting a voice in their head to explain that if resistance runs out, the machine will stop functioning automatically. While enduring these attacks, the protagonist concentrates and manages to see their parameters. They discover that everything is at 0 except for resistance and hardness. They also realize that magic seems to exist in this world. The frog creature manages to damage a part of the protagonist, but the voice informs them that they can replenish resistance using points. This brings joy to the protagonist, as they still have 900 points and can withstand further attacks. However, the situation worsens when the frog creature calls 3 more friends, one of whom wields a steel axe. The protagonist, filled with desperation, searches for any function that could save them, but finds none suitable for their current situation. Amidst the ongoing onslaught, the protagonist's resistance continues to rapidly decrease. Eventually, they discover a function called Divine Protection, special powers granted by the gods. This function allows them to use special abilities once without spending any points. They enter this function and find various options to choose from. In their moment of suffering, they also discover the barrier function. This lets them create an invisible barrier around them, controlling who can pass through it. As they activate this function, a bright cube forms around them, blocking the frog creature's attacks. The protagonist proudly declares that an invincible vending machine has been born. Confused, the frog creatures continue their attempts to attack, unable to comprehend what's happening. Despite their efforts, they eventually give up and leave as evening approaches. The protagonist decides to start recovering their resistance for now, as their points have been depleting rapidly, and the protagonist manages to fully recover automatically. However, they have spent a considerable number of points, leaving them with only 311 points remaining. With this amount, they can barely survive for 10 more days. Their main concern is that if no customers come, it could lead to their automatic death. Desperate for someone to approach, they shout for someone to come and buy something. A few days later, the protagonist has resigned themselves to their impending demise. They still wish they could have sold something before dying. Suddenly, they hear the voice of a woman nearby. When the young girl arrives, she expresses relief that there are no monsters around. She's extremely hungry and explains that she often finds herself in this situation. She just sold her backpack full of supplies and apologizes to her parents loudly, while she complains about being a cazadora, which seems overwhelming for her. The protagonist hears the girl's words but is unfamiliar with the term cazadora. The girl continues to ponder her options, considering the possibility of hunting and eating a frog, but worries about her lack of strength affecting her ability to deliver accurate blows. Then, the girl notices the protagonist and approaches to investigate. She marvels at its metallic appearance and strange shape. Peering through the glass, she sees beverages but can't understand the labels. The protagonist greets her and asks her to insert a coin, which surprises the girl as a voice comes from the vending machine. She wonders about the type of currency required, whether it's bronze, silver, or something else. She realizes she doesn't have any gold coins. In the meantime, she attempts to figure out how the machine works and inserts a bronze coin. However, the coin doesn't work, and the protagonist informs her that it's the wrong coin. The voice instructs her to use the coin exchange function. Upon using this function, the product numbers change, and the young girl continues her investigation. She can see that she needs to use a silver coin that's worth at least Myloas, which is quite expensive. However, she doesn't mind and uses it anyway because she's very hungry. When the coin is inserted into the vending machine, it brings a lot of happiness to the protagonist. The price numbers light up, and she selects the one with a picture of soup, but when it drops down, she gets scared. She worries it might bite her if she tries to grab it with her hand. Trembling with fear, she retrieves the corn soup she picked, and upon opening it, she's delighted by the wonderful aroma. Taking a sip, she's completely amazed by the taste, declaring it even better than the one she had at the inn. Witnessing the girl's happiness, the protagonist feels that being reborn as a vending machine was worth it. Throughout the day, the girl tries all the available drinks, enjoying the milk tea in particular. She ends up buying 3 corn soups and a bottle of water, spending 6 silver coins and 30 bronze coins. Night falls, and the protagonist allows her to sleep beside them, using their barrier function to protect her. The next day, the girl wakes up and expresses gratitude to the protagonist. Despite spending a lot of money, she mentions that her heart is full. The day passes satisfactorily, and the protagonist thanks her for her purchases. The girl wonders if the vending machine can speak. Not receiving a response, she assumes it can only repeat predetermined phrases. She remembers someone who invents tools with magical powers and wonders if the vending machine is similar to those tools. She asks for a sign if she's correct. At this point, the protagonist contemplates how to respond. The protagonist only responds with "welcome again," which the girl interprets as a sign. She mentions that Julin and her friend will be excited to know this. She introduces herself as Lamis, although the protagonist finds her name strange. Lamis instructs the protagonist to use welcome to mean yes and to choose another phrase for no. The protagonist decides to use the word lastima for no. Lamis then asks if she can tell the protagonist her name, but the protagonist responds negatively. She poses another question, asking if the protagonist has a special mission, to which the response is no again. Lastly, she inquires if the protagonist feels lonely, and the protagonist affirms. Lamis asks if the protagonist would like to go somewhere else, and the protagonist agrees. Lamis transports the protagonist to meet someone named Julemi, surprising the protagonist because they can't believe Lamis was able to lift them, as they weigh 500 kilograms. While being transported, the protagonist speculates that Lamis possesses divine protection of strength, explaining her ability to lift heavy weights. She stops for a break, during which Lamis decides to buy another corn soup. The protagonist, realizing that the soup doesn't satisfy her hunger, changes the products. After a shining exchange, the soup is swapped for potato chips. Lamis is delighted with the food and buys many packets of chips, spending all her money. This helps the protagonist recover 320 points, which they use to reduce the price of mineral water. As they continue walking, Lamies mentions that they are close to a village. When they arrive, guards named Kalios and Golds are relieved to see Lamies alive. Lamies explains that the protagonist is a magical tool with a will of its own, surprising the guards. They can't believe that a magical tool could be found at the lake level of the dungeon. Lamies asks if she made a mistake bringing the protagonist to the village, and the guards reassure her that the dungeon's rule is that everything found there belongs to the discoverer. In the meantime, the protagonist doesn't understand what the guards are talking about, including levels and dungeons. The guards express curiosity and ask if the vending machine is for sale upon learning it can speak. Lamies promptly responds with a no. The guards try the products and find them delicious, so they ask Lamies to bring the vending machine to their location since they are sentinels and can't move. The protagonist is excited about the potential for more sales. While Lamies transports the protagonist through the village, they notice a situation in an alley where some thugs are surrounding a defenseless girl. The protagonist intervenes, but their attempts to hit the thugs are unsuccessful. However, the thugs flee in fear, and the grateful girl thanks Lamies for the help. The scene shifts to Lamies arriving at an inn. A girl named Manami rushes down the stairs to greet her, scolding her for causing worry. Manami had questioned other hunters who said they had abandoned Lamies, but she took care of them. Manami asks about the unusual item Lamies brought, and Lamies explains that this time it's not trash, it's a very useful boy who saved her life. She places the protagonist outside the inn and explains that if Lamies wants to take him to the surface to meet Julemi, she needs money for the teleportation circle. Lamies will have to work at the inn if she doesn't have the money. The protagonist is placed outside the inn to attract customers, and they're pleased with the success of their products. Lamies transports them to the city entrance at night. We then shift to the guards who are tired of the same products and express their desire for a change. The protagonist decides to modify their inventory. They see they've earned 3,000 points, and they're happy with the positive reception of their changes, creating excitement in the village due to the success of their dynamic menu. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more anime videos.